This is a podcast presented by
Hard to Find Media.
Subscribe to Hard to Find Media on youtube.com/Hard to Find Media Network. This shit is free. Share it. Blast it.
You give me the sweetest taboo.
Hello, welcome to the Hardy Boys. We're here talking about Taboo. The show starring and co-created by Tom Hardy, beloved actor. It's a FX and BBC co-produced limited prestige television series, and we have passed the halfway mark.
This is true. Yeah. Crest of it.
Episode 5. I'm Jason. As always, it's a Tuesday night, so my stalwart pal here.
It's me, Mac.
Sure is gangsta.
Yeah. Taboo Tuesdays.
Okay. Taboo, episode 5. Yeah, we're now in the back half of the season.
Yeah.
We've switched directors.
Yeah.
From Christoph Nyholm,
The Killing Man.
the killing man himself, to a fellow named Anders Engström. I forgot to fucking look up what he's known for
No
before
idea.
recording.
Well, corrections next week.
Yes, got top of the list, I
Yeah.
guess. And he directs the last 4 episodes of this season. This episode was written by Stephen Knight and a co-writer, Ben Hervey.
Yeah.
But before we dive in, we got to do our corrections and clarifications up top.
Okay, let's do it.
So for some reason, at the beginning of last week, we got on like an immediate tangent about
Outbreak.
Dustin
Hoffman.
Correct.
Rene Russo.
Correct.
Who's the third lead?
You mentioned Kevin Spacey.
He's a co-lead. He gets like murked because his suit rips. So he gets like the.
Spoilers!
Yeah, I think. Okay. Sorry for anyone who didn't have to suffer through Outbreak at some point or another.
You're saying the statute of limitations on Outbreak has
Long since expired. Yeah.
The complicating factor being that I don't know why, but I thought Primal Fear was also
That's
contagious.
a Richard Gere joint, is it not? Wasn't that the one that got Edward Norton on the scene?
Okay, see, that's why. I thought Edward Norton was in Outbreak, but then I was like, well, was there another Contagious Monkey movie that I'm confusing it with? Turns out Primal Fear is like about a kid accused of killing a priest.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with
But he's like
infectious apes.
Duplicitous by nature, and Richard Gere is the one who defends him.
I've clearly never seen either.
I don't know
and
why
they
I'm
just
like
got
more
mixed up.
cognizant about this this week, but I think I listened to the last podcast and I was like, oh yeah, it's like Dustin Hoffman's like the main, like he's like a research pathologist or something. But yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. He's like an expert.
Yeah. It's about a bunch of experts wearing big yellow suits, trying not to,
Was that like his expert phase? Because
His
he's also in
Sphere
Sphere.
is right around there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like, I Heart Huckabee's arguably something of an expert.
That's a lot later, though.
It is, by a hot minute.
Yeah, by like over a decade, I want to say.
But yeah, let's put that nonsense just to rest.
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman is for sure the star of Outbreak.
Yes, and I'm a big dum-dum that I don't know why I conflate these movies.
It happens to the best of us.
Okay, yeah, but if you'll allow me a moment to pull up my phone, it's time to give you an education in getting iced.
Oh, God, yeah.
I pulled this up from our good friend Urban Dictionary, and this entry reads as follows. The rules are simple. If a person sees a Smirnoff Ice, he or she must get down on one knee and chug it, unless they happen to be carrying their own Smirnoff, in which case they can ice block or refract the punishment back onto the attacker. In order to dupe people into stumbling across the beverage, you're going to love this part especially. Participants have devised creative ways of presenting them with ices, like strapping the bottles to the backs of dogs or burying them in vats of protein powder.
Okay.
Yeah. How broy is that?
It's very broy. I just would refuse.
You can't. It's like I said, that's why I used it as a metaphor for
I
a duel.
understand, but the thing is that, like, I don't feel that's a matter of honor to drink a Smirnoff Ice.
I mean, do you think, like, possibly killing a person is a matter of honor?
No, not at all. They're both stupid. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, okay. No, I appreciate your metaphor.
All right, thank you.
I'm
That's
so
all
glad.
I wanted.
Thank you for tuning me into an aspect of culture I would have blissfully been ignorant of.
Now you know about getting iced. Okay. More importantly, Taboo, episode 5.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we pick up right where we left off.
This is true.
A duel's about to happen.
Yeah, the duel, they're like on the water in 2 different boats.
Well, who's dueling? We got Delaney and Zilpha's shitty husband.
Yeah, whose name probably not worth remembering.
Yeah, I don't care to learn it.
Yeah.
Guy's a dick.
I'm with you. So, Delaney's getting, like, some dude's rowing the boat for him, and,
Yeah, like in rowboats, it's like a foggy-ass dawn.
yeah,
They're in
exactly.
some swampy, weird part of London.
Zilpha's garbage husband looks real worse for wear. The shit he was wearing last night, just sort of being like, why did I do this? He looks a little shaken.
He's having his ether hangover.
Exactly. And so they get to this little island, and there is an elderly woman there who sells... Do you remember what specifically she sells?
I don't, but she's described as a gypsy woman who owns the island that they're on that is between 2 parishes.
Right.
And I guess this is just where you go to duel.
Yeah, it's sort of a legal black zone was sort of how I was reading it. Like,
Yeah.
not that it seems all that difficult to get away with murder, considering how many bodies have been dropped thus far in this show.
I mean, Delaney sure seems to think it's like, okay.
Yeah, he's not gotten a lot of pushback
No.
on his wholesale murders. But yeah, she offers to sell them some sort of trinket or good luck charms in the duel.
Right.
Delaney shows up and is the guy who's orchestrating the duel or like seeing it over is like, okay, this is this guy's second, but Delaney's like, I don't have a second.
But Lorna's
Lorna's there. She's
like,
fucking around in the lake, just kind of like
ruining her nice dress, like
Yeah.
doing it all shitty. And then Delaney's like, what the fuck are you doing here? And she's like, well, I was bored and I've never seen a man shot before.
yeah.
And I was like, I love you, Lorna.
Yeah, Lorna's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I've really warmed up to her as the show's gone on. Like,
yeah, she's
very
growing on me.
quickly.
Yeah. But shitty husband, he has a second, which I guess is the person that loads your gun.
Yeah. That's the thing to clarify is, do they have any other auxiliary purposes other than, like, the guy who's just like, I got your back, bro?
Yeah,
Is that their essential function?
hype man?
Yeah, totally.
Backup. Yeah, I'd be curious to learn more about this too, because we'll need to, because they mentioned something called the Irish Code of 1777, which basically, I guess, is some like ground rules for how duels work, this far into history.
Who's the dude who got to write that rule? The first guy who, like, murked a motherfucker and was like, here's how I very ethically shot a man in the face.
Well, no, they
Like,
specifically say that you can't duel to the death anymore.
oh, okay. So it's, like, classy. So that's why they're, like, not trying to let him do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And they say that there's no second shot. So it's first blood, you get one shot, you
What
walk
if you
towards the
accidentally
guy.
kill a guy?
Well,
It's like a whoopsie?
I mean, manslaughter.
Okay. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, if you put, like, a musket ball through a guy, there's no guarantee he's not just going to bleed out, even if you don't shoot him in the heart or the head or whatever.
I mean, it may have been different at this time to the U.S. I can't remember the last guy to, like, die in a duel.
Right.
Yeah, it's another thing to look up.
Let's
Like,
look-
when
let's
was the
look into
American Civil
duels.
War? Because Jackson was dueling, like, all the time.
Yeah, we'll make sure to dip in some corrections for next week with
Yeah.
our dual facts.
Yes, duel facts. But, okay, so how does this duel go down, Matt? Because it's a bit surprising.
I was very shocked, but at the same time, I didn't know how it could possibly play out other than a logical outcome, but it was not what I anticipated, which is that shithead husband basically starts, after there are 2 sabers put in the ground, and then it's like, walk towards each other, and then just shoot at your convenience.
Yeah,
After
when you feel like it.
yeah, exactly, when you're feeling really good.
Yeah.
And so they walk towards each other, and Delaney just kind of doesn't give a fuck. And husband eventually shoots and hits Hardy in the shoulder, seemingly, except for there's no bullet in his gun, or no.
Well, yeah, that's what we learned, right? It looks like he got shot, but like,
Except for there's no wound, but there's
no
like an impact.
Well, yeah, but
It's like the gunpowder, but there's no piece of lead to pierce his chest.
Which I immediately I was like, oh, this is some like supernatural shit.
That was my first reading because I was like, what?
It's like some Wayne's World 2, like, he cannot be killed by conventional weapons. Yeah,
totally.
But it turns out that Delaney, who doesn't shoot back, is just like, I can only assume you're second as a company man since you failed to load a bullet in your pistol. And then
at which point the second's like, oh, no, and just hightails it.
Turns to run and gets immediately shot in the back of the head by Delaney.
Yeah.
It was just like, yeah, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, it's completely horrifying, and everyone is just taken aback that Delaney's just summarily executed this guy.
Yep. Go tell the East India Company I give no fucks.
Yeah, as if they had not gotten the memo thus far.
But they can't kill him because they need him alive right now.
Exactly,
so.
and Hardy sort of puts a fine point on that by just saying that, well, clearly my life is more valuable than yours at present.
Yep.
And then he's just takes off.
Yep, let's go home, Lorna.
Yeah.
But we follow crappy, racist, wife-beating, shithead husband home. Mm-hmm. And he is not having a good morning.
Yeah, he's having like a real bad night and an awful morning.
He immediately goes for like a giant bottle of brandy. Doesn't even bother pouring it into anything.
Other than his mouth, yeah.
Right, exactly. He's just going straight down the gullet. Mm-hmm. And then has the sack to ask for potatoes and champagne.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, wow, this is going to be a fucking weird lost weekend for this dude. You know?
At least he's getting his starch on if he's doing a lot of heavy drinking.
That's true. But
it turns in... Oh, yeah, it's a dreadful idea to be drinking that much brandy and champagne.
I mean, brandy than champagne...
But
you're gonna be insane. Champagne and brandy. You might start feeling randy.
We don't ever want this guy to feel randy. It never goes to a good place.
That's true.
But the whole champagne and potatoes thing ends up being like story related.
It's like a weird metaphor that he's trying to make.
Somewhat convoluted metaphor about Delaney, right?
My interpretation was he was like, well, it would be potatoes if I won.
These would be like
sustenance. And it would be champagne if I was dead.
Because it'd be like a celebration because he thinks she wants to bone Delaney again.
Yeah. And he's also real pissed that there's ash on her hands.
Yeah, which is ironic considering that he comes in just so filthy.
Yes. But I think that is like an allusion to what we learned at the very end of the episode.
I think so. Yeah.
But for the time being, we're like, that's weird.
Yeah, totally. We'll put a button in that till the end of the episode.
We sure will. Where do we go from here? Back to Casa Delane. And
yep.
I feel like Brace is like, hey, how was your day?
Brace is trying to, if I remember correctly, he's putting together like breakfast for them, right?
Yes, but
he's like putting like
hard-boiled eggs
and like little egg holders and trying to chop bread, but is also just so pissed off again because he's talking about the robbery and how it's just like, hey, they're gonna fucking hang anyone who's seen as a collaborator, you asshole.
He's like, red coats, blue coats, they've been walking down every street, kicking down every door. Delaney's just like brooding by the fucking fireplace, not talking to anyone. Yeah, just grunting.
Mm-hmm. And everyone's kind of tripped out because like Delaney has raised the stakes even higher because now it's not just his ass in the fire potentially. It's like a whole bunch of people who are
everyone who's worked with him.
Yeah, everyone is now complicit in Delaney's gamble.
The League of the Damned.
Appropriate name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially now.
Yeah. But Delaney and Lorna end up retiring to the beach to have their breakfast, which are hard-boiled eggs.
He swallows his whole.
Yeah. Yes, he does. It is fucking disgusting.
But basically, he explains a little more of his strategy here. So, what Delaney knows and what we're just now learning is that the saltpeter that they stole had already been purchased from the East India Company by the Crown. Ergo, the Prince Regent can sue the East India Company for negligence since it was their property and they were supposed to have been protecting it.
Right.
So he's even further turning the screws on both sides of that equation.
Yeah.
He's
fucking them both in a way that will cause one to fuck the other.
Yes. He's Yojimboing the ever-living shit out of
every English institution.
Yes. Yeah. Every level of authority in England at this moment. Lorna is just more concerned about all of them getting hanged. And him specifically, it seems like.
Yeah, she seems to give a shit about him.
Well, she specifically says, like, do you want James Delaney to live? I want James Delaney to live. He doesn't answer. And then Winter shows up out of nowhere to be like, I want James Delaney to live.
Yeah. He's going to take me to America.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Even though he's, like, in league with Satan or whatever. I can't remember exactly what she says, but it's something like,
Yeah.
Oh, he's a devil, but...
He's my devil.
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't the line, but I like that. That's like some Daredevil Season 1 quality writing.
Totally. Thank you.
And then we check back in. Well, we see, like, all the soldiers and whatnot raiding all these, like, boats and shit.
Yeah, like, where's the saltpeter? They're looking for that saltpeter. That's what it's called, right? Saltpeter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Is this where we get our first Atticus alert?
Ooh, that is a great question. I mean, point being, these dudes can't find the saltpeter, so it's a mystery. Where Delaney stashed that sweet saltpeter.
The Atticus alert rings loud and true later in this episode. I just remembered. Okay, Delaney rides his Ridley Scott-esque white steed into the countryside on his way to the farm, is what we learn. But he's got a tail.
Yeah. And in classic James Delaney, like you'd expect, he deals with it with a lot of grace and dignity, very measured approach. Just kidding, he pulls the man off the horse and clearly like breaks his shoulder because the man instantly is like whimpering in pain.
Yeah.
Which made me feel real empathetic towards this guy, or it's just like, we don't have anything, we have no context for who this fucking guy is, just riding the trail behind him.
Yeah.
But, it's awful. And then Delaney...
He puts his scary knife up to his throat.
He grabs him from behind and, like, pulls him up and, like, puts his legs over him in, like, a jujitsu lock so the dude can't move.
He can't go anywhere.
Pulls out his scary little knife. And then, doesn't he ask if he's a East Indies or a Crown?
East India. Gotta correct you every time.
God damn it. No, I appreciate it.
No, he's like, are you company or Crown? And he's like, doesn't matter. And, like, cuts, like, a big thing in his stomach.
Slit in his stomach, yeah.
Oh. And then he's like... he gives some other sort of threat, and he's just like, there's nothing for you where I'm going. Tell that to whoever sent you. And then, like, stabs him a few more times.
He does the same thing he did to that giant assassin where he, like, rips up his legs.
Ugh.
Like, both of his legs are just like, you can't walk anymore. This is like the James Delaney signature is just leaving to bleed out.
Yeah, like, how are you getting back on that horse, guy? I think he's just, like, fucked for life.
Oh, yeah, no, you don't get workers' comp, I'm pretty sure, from the Crown if James Delaney just ruins your body.
Was he sent by the Crown? We know that he got ratted out by someone, but we're not entirely sure exactly what side this guy was sent from.
Point being that, like, Delaney has a very, very good reason to have to murk this dude.
Yes, and I believe it's not the Americans. And we'll get to why I think that. It's a bit of a plot hole, but it comes up later. But he's going to the farm to check on the chemist.
My favorite horny chemist.
Who we can now pronounce his name that we were struggling so much with. It's like Chombley.
Yeah.
Not Clemendele or whatever we were trying to say. But
Chombley? Is that where we're going to go?
Chombley.
Chombley. But they're, the dude, our Chombley, he has like a bunch of big-ass vats, and he's making that filthy-ass gunpowder.
Yeah, it's just slowly stirring just what I imagine is a lot of urine and shit together.
Yeah.
With ashes and
saltpeter.
A dash of cinnamon. I don't think he's added the saltpeter yet.
Okay, yeah,
But
I
the
think you're right.
saltpeter is
'Cause
at
you
the
see
farm.
Yeah, and it's like a thing where they're having a conversation about the best way to preserve the saltpeter until they need it because the roof is like leaky and shitty, but he's just trying to say like we'll save money by putting like a canvas tarp over it, and that's fine.
It's good saltpeter. He's like, I taste tested it myself. Almost as good as the batshit distillations of Burma, he says.
There you go. And he will need 4 weeks to get that gunpowder a-going.
Correct. We also find out that he's really fucking horny for Lorna.
Oh, boy,
He's
how
like, hey,
does
what was up with that actress that you were with the other night? Is she, like, yours, or is that on the table?
What's going on there?
And Hardy basically makes it sound like, that's not gonna happen, guy.
He doesn't acknowledge that it's like his girl, but he's also, pointedly nonverbal about confirming or denying what's going on with Lorna.
It's interesting, right? This show's version of Sam and Diane is so peculiar.
Yeah.
It's like, well, here's these two, people on different ends of the shittiness spectrum forced into a close proximity, and I can't tell if it's a mutual thing. We know Lorna's into him.
Yeah.
He seems at the very least protective of her.
At the very least, he doesn't want Chombley to bone her.
Yeah. Meanwhile, though, he's like, astrally fucking his stepsister.
He's performing sex magic / magic rape or something on his sister. I don't quite understand, and I'm now really curious how we're going to be meant to read that when we get to the end of the episode, which I want to circle back to.
Oh, totally. And there's a word I wish I'd written down that the shitty husband uses to describe the exact, demon or that's visiting her.
Right. I'm spacing on that too.
Which I wonder if it has some root in actual, mysticism back in the day or what.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, Lorna, meantime, has brought a trunk of her possessions, documents related to her marriage.
The things that Delaney had been harping upon and was touching upon in our beach scene earlier.
Yes, he still wants that fucking box of shit from her because he believes it contains the
Nootka Sound Treaty.
The treaty, the pact.
Yeah.
Because he wants to be able to prove in a tribunal that it wasn't taken by conquest, but by
and that they had an agreement for gunpowder, if memory serves.
Yeah, he bought the land for gunpowder and something else, and Delaney's mom for beads.
Yeah.
But she brings this trunk home finally, and she's like, Brace, why didn't you fucking help me carry this thing up the steps? And he's like, sorry, I was busy putting the house back together.
Yeah,
got fucking
soldiers rampage. Remember when I cleaned this house up last week because they dragged your ass off?
Yeah.
Having to haul the couch upside down again. This is bullshit.
Guess what? We got Last Crusaded again.
Yeah, exactly.
So I hope, your dad's diary's in a good place.
Yeah.
You gave it to Marcus? Anyway. Okay, but he says something about the possessions of the trunk, and I assume he's alluding to the treaty, but he's like, man, I wish I'd just fucking thrown that shit in the river.
Yeah.
And a lot of bad things would have never come down on us.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very Alfred attitude to take.
It is. Yeah.
Where it's like, God damn it, Master Bruce. I wish you'd never come back.
Yeah, totally.
Meanwhile, at the farm, Hardy goes to visit the one of the goons from the beginning of Batman 89 and his secret son.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hardy's secret son.
Yes.
Just to specify.
Thank you.
Who we have not seen since episode Uno, if memory serves.
Yeah.
Because the chemist is like, I need a fucking assistant if you want to get this shit done as fast as you want.
Yes.
And that's a takeaway from the first scene.
Yes.
Where the chemist and them are together. So it's like Hardy bursting in on this poor kid and this frightened man who's been taking care of his illegitimate son or whatever.
And trying to hide the truth from him. And Hardy's just like, well, here's the thing. There's a bunch of stolen saltpeter in there, and anyone who knows about it is, they can either rat me out or get hanged. Or both.
Yeah, but it's like, you're with me now, so it's like, you don't have an option. Like, no matter what, it's like, either you're with me or get murdered.
Yep, Father of the Year.
Yeah. So then we see this, like, 10-year-old go into the spot where the chemist is working, and Hardy's basically like, here's your apprentice, and just pieces out immediately.
Yep.
But Chumbley, to his credit, is nice to the kid as he teaches him to make gunpowder.
Yeah, he seems like...
This is me finding the silver lining in, like, a 10-year-old being forced to, like, stir vats of gunpowder.
I know.
At least Chumbley is nice about it.
Okay, and then next is when we get our Atticus alert.
Yeah.
He goes to visit Atticus and his squad in the bar.
Mm-hmm. As you'd imagine.
And he's like, hey, a guy tried to follow me the other day, so I know one of you ratted me out. And I know who it is.
Yeah, totally. Wasting very little time to get to the point.
Yep. And it's like, and this particular person doesn't have a spot on my ship when we go to America.
Because I have no use for you.
Because he's not going to have a thumb.
And then he promptly cuts off this fat man's thumb. And sort of waves it around the bar.
Yeah. So that you know he means business.
And it's, again, I think it's that similar refrain of just like, listen, we're all going to get... Yeah. You're all gonna get hung. Like, you're already in it, so trying to rat me or anyone else out is like fool's errand.
You're right. This whole sort of sequence is just about Hardy sort of tying up loose ends.
Mm-hmm. The
only
only thing you really have to be scared of is me.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, don't you fucking dare. So the next place he goes is Helga's. And he's like, well, they say that there were some women involved in this raid, so if anyone comes around asking... just know that he like puts some gold down the table. He's bribing people left and right, but then he also pulls out the thumb and the a diamond.
Well, he has a more like the approach towards the women is more just that like they can't touch you for legal reasons. So if anyone tries to intimidate you, that's bullshit. And like if anything happens, like I'll handle it my way. And then he puts the thumb down. Right. So it's like he's kind of just cool with the prostitutes. I dare say, where it's like, listen, guys, I got you covered. You're legally covered, and I will murder anyone who comes near you.
Delaney is down with sex workers.
Yeah, he kind of is.
But he does put the thumb down and like a diamond next to it, sort of to be like, yeah, I got the carrot or the stick, you know. But yeah, Stuart Strange is pissed because everyone's you know they've been made a laughing stock of, and now the crown is even more on their ass. He says, what does he say? We have more money than God?
Yeah.
And specifically, I blaspheme with impunity because the company is at my heel, which I thought was a great line. But I'm realizing now, looking over our notes, that I skipped a great chameleonic chemist line.
Yeah.
Which was when he's describing Lorna.
Oh, God, yeah. This one's so good.
It's so weird and character specific. He's like, not only is she among the large number of women I would sleep with, she's also among the much smaller group of women I would masturbate over. Which is
very specific.
You've given a lot of thought to this already, guy.
Yeah. He's spending like 8 hours a day at a minimum stirring a giant pot of...
That's true.
I mean...
But in his head, it's just like, who's that girl?
Yeah.
Na, 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 na. Yeah. Stuart Strange is pissed. The secretary dude looks kind of spooked because he's obviously in a real compromised position.
Yeah, for sure.
Back at Helga's whorehouse, somebody tries to... He pulls a knife while he's having sex with the little girl that we met last week. That was part of the raid.
Yeah, who was blowing that security guard to distract him while the thing went down.
And this guy's like, what do you know?
Yeah.
And then Winter sees this, gets like...
It seems like Winter's like job is just to be like...
kind of a lookout.
Norman Batesing, like, all the different, like, situations to be like, this guy's fucking crazy, like, go get a guy to murder the dude trying to have sex with this prostitute. Like, I get the impression that's her job.
Their muscle comes and pulls this guy out, and the next time we see him, he's, like, been...
Dead as fuck, and has crabs crawling over him, and Atticus is just like, that's a dead guy. And Winter's hanging out.
Yeah.
And she puts a note on the dead body.
Died on company business.
With the little, like, bird insignia that Delaney has
yes.
on his back.
Yes. And I believe Atticus has a line where he's just like, Spread the word. The devil Delaney did him.
Yeah, totally.
It's weird how few fucks Delaney gives about just people knowing that he's like...
Killing everybody?
Yeah.
Because he's untouchable, and he's just kind of leaning into it?
I guess so, right?
You might as well. I don't think morality is a big factor. He's unkillable by the Americans and the British currently. He's just kind of enjoying his ride.
Theoretically, he's uncapturable, too, because he's so Batman. Otherwise, they could just put him in jail and torture him, right?
Yeah, but I don't think they would gain anything by that. I mean, because it's presumptuous that like torture wouldn't accidentally kill him, or that he wouldn't break. You know what I mean? Like it's possible that could go either way, and then they would be fucked because of like whoever he has his rights go to after that.
Right.
So that's like not a foolproof thing. He just won't listen to reason because
He has
their
that.
version of reason
Yeah.
because it's like he can't be bought with money.
No, and he's
A
quite,
bit of a
he's
joker.
quite mad.
For a Batman, he's a bit of a joker.
It's true. And I will say that in this episode especially, he has a new kind of crazy in his eyes.
Yeah, I mean, upon thinking about how awful that it's not a killing as far as we see it, but it's like, that guy's fucked up for life.
Well, sure. Well, he
has
starts
to be
out by
done.
shooting a guy in the back of the head and just like
I don't know, and I glossed
brain
over that.
flying out.
Yeah, that was pretty shocking and horrifying. I mean, now it's just the stakes have been raised, so Delaney can't really, like, fuck around, and he has to constantly send a message. Like, I get that, like, gangland aspect of it, essentially, where it's just like, oh, well, you sent a person after me, thus I will literally blow their brains out, or, like, maim them. I mean, what other recourse does he really have?
No, totally. It seems to me, at least in his performance, that he seemed extra, like, scary and freaky looking in this episode. And the level of violence was so much more amplified, and just his ruthlessness.
Yeah, and they make a point of that by showing how scared his biological son is of him.
Yeah, when he, like, walks in. And
And
like,
also, isn't it...
what's he looking at? And he's like, Chombley or whatever is like, he's fucking scared of you, dude. Like,
But isn't that the scene where he mentions that it's like, he knows that it's his son, or is that later?
That comes later.
Okay, well, whatever. We already assumed as much.
But, you know, apart from seeing him do some weird witchcraft stuff down by the lake,
He's
or
like
the swamp, blowing dust
again.
and we get some brief flashes of, I don't know, maybe him in Africa or something. But
But it's him covered in like
face
makeup.
paint.
Well, it's on his whole torso as
Yeah.
well, and he has
Right.
like ceremonial makeup on his chest. So it seems like a whole to-do, similar to what we presume is his mother's makeup ritual. I want to say that we've seen in previous
Yes.
episodes.
And it looks very Valhalla Rising.
Yeah. I mean, I can't
Isn't there
remember.
like an almost identical shot?
I mean, the vibe of just weird, tough guy, supernaturally vibes I get, but I don't recall the makeup aspect of that. But it could be that I just haven't seen Valhalla Rising in a while. Point being, it is similarly like otherworldly and weird, and hard to pin down.
I thought for sure that movie had a shot of like Mads Mikkelsen waist deep in water in like a steaming lake.
I think that may be true, but not the makeup thing. I thought was what you were alluding to, and I was like, no.
Well, it's also a little bit Apocalypse Now.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Anyways, next scene, Tom Hardy's going in through that trunk that he was so excited about and burning shit.
Burning everything in that trunk and
Yeah.
weeping. And Lorna's like, what are you doing? Your dad wrote you all these beautiful letters and
what the
paintings
hell?
from around the world. He's like, yeah, the oil sure burns nice. You're like, fuck.
Yeah.
And he really doesn't give a shit. He just wants to find the treaty. And this is where Lorna finds out that, yeah, his mother was from America and was purchased for beads.
Yeah.
And Hardy seems to have no love lost or Delaney rather, seems to have no love lost for his dad. He's like,
I mean, that's certainly the only takeaway that I could grab from this, which I was a little surprised by. But I also wonder if it's like a thing where it's like I heard him from across the pond, so I don't need to hold on to something as sentimental as letters.
I think that's an aspect of it, but also the whole thing that he says where it's like, well, she couldn't pretend to be the Italian countess or the Spanish princess or whatever.
So she went into the mental institution.
He locked her up because she didn't want
She
to
wouldn't play a
pretend.
role that worked in like their version of society, essentially.
Which plays into the interesting caste stuff in this show, right?
Yeah, totally.
Caste, class, all that stuff.
Yeah, no, I feel you, and I think you're right.
Which emphasizes Delaney's presumed otherness.
Right, and how he can oscillate between any segment of society, but isn't comfortable in any one of them.
Yes. Except for perhaps among the scumbags and the prostitutes, and
He seems at least to have more of like a familiarity with them, with the people who own the fact that they are the other, than with society.
At least the other class,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the way he treats like the prostitutes and the scallywags and the chemists and all that stuff is a lot more humane by Delaney's standards than the way he wants to treat anyone in high society, save for Zilpha.
Definitely. And Lorna is just still sort of like, what the fuck are you doing, guy? And as I think she storms out of the room, and I believe, if I heard the line correctly, it was like, have you ever bought a soul for beads?
Yeah.
Which is, I am still having a hard time parsing exactly.
I don't know what to read on that one either myself.
Like, I get the implication that maybe he doesn't have a soul, but also she trying to suggest that, like, he was involved in slaving, which we know was a thing, but we don't know that she knows.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if it's like he got, like, put on that slave ship in a non-slave driving capacity. I can't really...
We still don't know.
Yeah, because that's been just complicated. So he says he's complicit in the evil that they do, but we don't quite know to what level or like exactly what that means.
But we do learn a lot more about that specific sort of hinted at backstory in this episode.
That's true.
Not as it relates to Delaney, but like just what the deal is with that ship, how it relates to the overall story.
Yeah.
Because basically Coop, Mr. Sideburns, the Prince Regent's lawyer, has been doing some digging. He's saying to the Prince Regent, like, hey, we could sue the East India Company for negligence, but Strange will just, like, pass the buck onto some underlings, and, it won't really have a measurable impact. I say we go after him personally. I've done some digging. I found all this correspondence from this guy named George Chichester, who's got a bone to pick with the East India Company and Strange in particular.
Yeah.
But before we find out what exactly is going on with that, we get another visit to Dumbarton.
My main man from America.
That's right. He's pretending that there's a...
cholera epidemic.
Yes, so that no one visits his, specifically, like, no troops or anything, visit his doctor's office.
Yeah.
And the guy at the door is like, there's an outbreak of cholera. And Delaney just, like, keeps on walking. He's like, I'm immune. Yeah. It is great. But basically, Dumbarton sort of blackmails Delaney at this point.
He strong arms him, essentially. Where it's like, we need gunpowder by this date. And Delaney's like, I need this much time. He's like, no, you don't. And he, like, hands him, like, I feel like a recipe, essentially.
Yeah, well, specifically, he says that he knows the exact route and address of the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And then he mentions this blockade that they need gunpowder for.
Right.
They're going to run out in 8 days. They need it by then. And they know that he's making it because word on the street is out.
Right.
And you're right. He gives him the specific recipe that then he's going to take back to the chemist. My question is, though, don't they already know where the farm is? Because they sent that man to kill him there last episode.
Yeah. They clearly do. I think that that's maybe not...
But Hardy knows that they know, so why is he pretending that it's new information? Because they had a whole conversation about it at the party.
That's a good point. Maybe there's like maybe this is more specific and we're just like remembering it being like a little askew, because you're totally right that he did kill that assassin at like literally at that farm.
It was at the farm.
Last week.
Yeah, and Dumbarton admitted to sending it. Sending the assassin, as did Carlsbad.
Right.
So, I think that is either sloppy writing or one of those things where, like, shows get edited so, sometimes slightly out of order.
Right, so
The
then you
scripts
don't
are
realize
somewhat
that there was...
jumbled.
Yeah. There's a good chance that you're right about that little piece of information.
I don't know that entirely explains or papers over that plot hole, but I thought it was worth pointing out.
Yeah.
Point being, the Americans are basically blackmailing Delaney into expediting his gunpowder production process.
How does the chemist feel about that, Jason?
You don't feel too good.
Yeah. You want to
He's
know
like-
why? French people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He dunks on the French real hard in this scene.
In a fair way, though, because
Oh, yeah.
he has a complete fucking point. Because apparently, did you write down the name of the chemical?
Chlorate.
You're the best, thank you. So chlorate can be used to dramatically expedite the creation of gunpowder, but you have to stir it constantly. So you have to have people in shifts stirring, but it's also highly combustible.
Yes.
Highly combustible.
Yeah, and he's like, when the French were trying to do this, they like blew up half of the factory.
Yeah.
So don't you fucking come to me and tell me to add chlorate, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
And
Hardy's like, I'll get you men, we're doing that.
yeah, no, we're adding chlorate because if we don't, we're all fucking hanging.
Yeah. The constant refrain of this episode, if you don't agree with me, it's kind of relevant because you're going to be dead in 8 days if you don't do what I say.
It's kind of amazing in that sort of mastermindy way where you don't even realize that Hardy's sort of engineered this situation where, like, not only does he have all these, like, this network of allies, but if they don't help him, they're all dead.
Yeah.
Because he got them into this shitty situation.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a little mob boss.
It's very mob boss.
And I believe this is where they had the exchange, where the chemist is like, that's your kid, right? You want him to blow up?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I don't care.
Pretty much. No real love lost there.
It's
seemingly.
weird, but I guess that's the whole sort of thematic thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would be weird if he was empathetic about the child that he'd abandoned. That would seem wildly out of character.
Well, and the fact that he has so much personal enmity for his own father, right?
There's that, too.
So it's not like he has a strong role model to go off of.
No. Yeah, no.
Sins of the father and all that. So
Yeah.
I believe that's what they're going for.
Mm-hmm.
I think next is when we meet this George Chichester fellow, right? Oh, no, it's sadly not.
No. Yeah. No, we get another of my least favorite recurring thing in Taboo in general, which is anytime shitty husband enters the bedchamber of his wife.
Yeah. And
Even worse, it's always bad whenever these two people are in a scene together, let alone in a bedchamber scene, because
this is possibly the worst one yet.
oh, for sure, this was the most upsetting.
Suffice it to say, it appears that she may be in the throes of being
Having some sort of sexual dream or
yes,
Tom Hardy.
or at worst, ghost
Yeah.
rape.
Yeah. We don't get any contextual evidence to show Hardy being connected to this one.
But he does walk
Or
in and
Delaney,
say,
I should say. Pardon me.
Yeah. He does walk in and say, you said his name. And she's like, oh,
Right.
shit. And then he starts to try and choke her and say, like, get him out of you. And she spits in his face because she's like, fuck you.
Yeah, I think
And
she's
he's
kind
like,
of at her
"That's
wit's
it.
end.
Spit him out of you. But that's not what she's trying to do. And long story short, he beats the shit out of her.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to watch.
It's a pretty protracted scene.
It is.
Yes.
I feel like the ugliness, and I don't mean like on a visual level, but the thematic level, the ugliness suddenly, not that it hasn't been
It was
present in the show
affecting me
so
a
far.
lot more this week.
Is that like the new director or something? It just feels like a rougher show.
I agree with you. I can't also tell if it's just the tide turning again because the stakes are higher, but like things like this where it's just, I don't know, you're seeing like the level of intensity increase in a way that I just found this week's episode to be a little bit of a joyless affair in a lot of regards.
There was
Pretty
very
heavy.
little that was fun about it.
Yeah, you just feel the sheer brutality of kind of every act of violence this week, which
Yes.
maybe, credit where credit's due for the director.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying as a contrast to the first four, not that there weren't like just awful things happening.
Left and right. Yeah.
But there was a little bit more of that sort of like Heisenberg flair, for example, to Delaney, where it's like,
And you get more
oh,
scenes
hell yeah.
of someone just being, Delaney! Just being like
Sure.
pissed off.
It was a little more cartoonish, and
Yeah.
something about the violence seemed a little more indulgent instead of this week where just all of the violence and all of the cruelty was so like, ugh.
Yeah, you just kind of felt how it would feel to be hurt in the way that it's portrayed on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I don't know, I can't tell how I feel about that. I think it does at least add to the sense of stakes and, like, the reality of that aspect of things.
But it's clearly one of those anti-hero shows, but Delaney's really testing my levels of sympathy for him.
This week made me not really, like, cotton to him at all.
No.
You know, I was just kind of like, oh, Jesus Christ, you're a piece of shit.
And yeah, I mean, sure, he's taking down these institutions, but
he's
also in it for
taking
himself?
down essentially a bunch of innocent people.
Yeah.
Not all, but many who were ostensibly innocent. Like, most of those prostitutes, completely innocent of any, like, involvement.
Well, he's extorted a bunch of people into working for him.
Yeah, but a lot of those prostitutes weren't even involved in the actual robbery, you know? So it's just like that whole crew is now involved in it. In the same way, like, not every one of those scallywags of that bar was involved, but they are all now.
Yeah.
Because he is essentially just being, like, casting shadows across, like, big social stratas, being like, I fucking own all of you.
Yeah.
And, like, hypothetically, I'll make your life better when we go to America, but for the time being, like, shut the fuck up or else I'll rip your thumb off.
Yeah. In so many words.
Yeah.
Then
we get a very curious scene with our favorite lawyer, Sideburns. Just kidding, he's a piece of shit, but it is Sideburns.
Coop. Yeah, so now this is where we meet George Chichester, who was mentioned earlier to the Prince Regent. He's this guy who's been writing letters to Coop, basically asking for the Crown's permission to investigate the East India Company in relation to a specific slave vessel, a sloop, that was named the Influence, but changed names once it reached a certain port. And I think this came up in episode 2 or 3, where they were talking about how the East India Company's vessels would, go to a certain part of the world to sell one thing, and then,
just
secretly
circumvent
change their
slavery
manifest.
being illegal.
It's like, okay, well, we sold these spices, but secretly we're going to take the long way home and sell a bunch of slaves on the way.
Right.
So yeah, this vessel was called the Influence. This lawyer, who is a black man, explains that there were 280 slaves on board, all of whom died.
Many of whom were kids.
Yeah, 72 children, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And fucking asshole Coop is like, oh, you seem very passionate about this. Do you have relatives on board?
Yeah.
And Chichester is not having it. He says...
He just laughs in his face.
He's like, even though I am black, I am not related by blood to every slave stolen from Africa. And Coop says something like, oh, I'm so glad you've taken up the cause of your people. And he's like, well, no, I'm here for justice for all people. This is fucked, and whatever, you owe me anyway.
Yeah.
We're on the same side. He knows as much. So yeah, basically what happens is Coop grants him permission for his inquest or whatever.
Well, he gives him a letter from he's like, oh, well, you're in luck. And hands him a letter from the Prince Regent.
Yeah, it was like a gold embossed letter that says,
exactly.
like, go for it.
Yeah. I wish that we just got an insert of just him opening it and just go for it with like 3 exclamation points.
Right, but in like a nice script.
Yeah, totally.
Like Quill, yeah.
And like golden ink.
Yes. I say, go for it. Strange is pissed.
Strange is really not cool this episode.
He's even extra, like, at a disadvantage. Like, he's clearly desperate.
Yeah.
He's like, here's the documents we need to burn. We're going to try and act like this isn't a big deal, but I'm shitting my knickers.
Yeah, I'm shitting my britches.
I'm trying to remember. I mean, I remember exactly how it wraps up, but what comes after this? Is it? Oh. Yeah, Hardy goes to visit Carlsbad.
Yeah.
Countess Musgrove. Mm-hmm. And basically, like, their servant comes in, he's like, hey, you've got a visitor. He came from the lake, and he's covered in shit. He's waiting for you outside. And she's having dinner with her husband, who must be the Count.
Yeah, considerably older and stodgier than her.
He has a great line where he's like, is this one of the people you're fucking? We'll find out if he came from the east or the west. There's cholera in the east.
Yeah.
And she's just like, it's not, I won't, that's not true.
Yeah.
And then
Carlsbad's a lot of fun.
I like her. Yeah, she's not exactly what we hoped she would be, but she's
the same vibe. She's just
brassy.
Not, yeah, she's not much senior to Hardy. They seem like roughly contemporaries, I would say. Like,
yeah, and no bullshit.
Yeah, they have the same sort of relationship, and she's also a lot less duplicitous, I would say, than Dumbarton, because they have a whole conversation about trust, and she intimates, like, he asks, like, if he can trust her, and she says that trust is something that has to be earned over time, and we don't have much time. So she's a lot more straightforward about the reality of their relationship and how inherently contentious and transactional it has to be by default.
Yeah, and I dig that. She's honest.
Too. Yeah.
Whereas Dumbarton is like...
Dumbarton just seems like
he's a spy.
He's like a CIA spook. Like, it's like that CIA, like, untrustworthy shithead vibe, but in, like, colonial England or whatever.
He's that guy with the sunglasses in the back of the car in Die Hard 3 who, like, doesn't say anything for a while. Yes. And he's like, Hans Victor Gruber.
Yeah, totally. He's like the one who has all the pertinent details.
He's like, he was born Simon Peter Gruber.
Yeah.
I mean, I goofed that up. I know Hans is the first movie, but he's talking about, yeah. That guy's
He's the one who has, like, all the classified intel. But he's, like, waiting until, like, the breaking point where it's like, all right, I have to tell you this now.
They've got that same vibe. Just like, this asshole.
For sure.
Anyway, basically, him and Musgrove just sort of reiterate what has to happen. He's like, hey, I know you got to get this gunpowder. Well, I'll get it. But yeah, I think that scene mostly exists just to contrast her and Dumbarton. And the level
Isn't there some sort of, like, dissonance between Dumbarton and her where she's like, I didn't, like, ask for the gunpowder?
She does say that, which is a curious wrinkle.
Yeah, so that makes me think that Dumbarton and her are not completely aligned, even though they are on the same side. So then we're getting shades potentially of East India.
Oh, company. Might be playing them against each other.
That's what I'm saying.
Now that would be interesting.
Appreciate me for saying East India Company.
I do. I give you mad props, kudos.
Took a lot of guts for me to not make it to this. I appreciate that. I need it. But yeah, now I'm wondering if that isn't a thing I hadn't picked up on initially, where it's like there are sub-factions within the Americas in the same way there are in, like, Britain or whatever.
Oh, I don't think that's been entirely set up.
I don't think it's been entirely set up, but it's like they have different interests, so it's maybe something that could get teased out.
Right.
That would maybe go into predictions, but, like...
I like that.
It's just something to ponder on.
We know that somebody is a rat.
Besides the guy who has one thumb now.
Yeah, because Delaney mentioned it when he was at the farm the last time.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly what tipped him off to that. I guess the fact that the Americans know the location of the farm.
From Jump Street, yeah.
Which, again, I have misgivings about that being a plot point all of a sudden. But
hopefully we get some clarity there and we can, like,
either way, somebody's giving information at the very least to the Americans. So
yeah, I don't trust the Americans or the Brits.
Yeah, my money is... I don't know. I don't know who it's on, actually.
Me neither.
I hesitate to make an assumption. But,
Same.
So, we end on another real rough scene.
Yeah.
Basically...
Puts a fine button on our point about this week's episode just being kind of like a depressing slog. I mean, I enjoyed... Like, it's a good show, but it's just, like, it's hard to watch,
Yes, it's compelling, but this one in particular is just a lot of rough stuff happens.
Yeah.
Namely, shit husband, fuck bag.
He, like... Zilpha's, like, coming out of her room, and she's got, like, a huge shiner from when he assaulted her earlier.
Cuts on her face.
Yeah, it's like she just looks really fucked up, and it's hard to even, like... It's very depressing. But he's just like, oh, dear wife. And then he's like, hey, I found you, like, a guy who, like, specializes in, like, getting demons out of people.
He's a priest. He's gonna exorcise you now.
Yeah.
And she's, like, immediately starts fighting back. Like, I don't want this to fucking happen.
Yeah.
And he's like, whoa, yeah, the demon's in her. We gotta pin this bitch down.
Yeah. And then the next scene, she's literally, like, tied down, arms and legs, with a bunch of candles and shit around her. The priest is saying I think, stuff in like Latin.
Of course, yeah.
And also like groping her.
He's groping
He's
her.
like groping her breasts, and then he's like, "This." Can you correct me on this? It's something about to the effect of like, this is like where the evil like bubbles up.
Well, he says like, oh, you see how the skin gets flushed? That's the evil coming to the
Right.
surface.
So saying that like
Ugh.
women being like temptation and like evil and that just that
I think he's just saying
basic
that as an
shit.
excuse to like molest her, basically.
I think that's for sure what he's doing, but it also seems like an implicitly like sexist thing, right?
Sure.
Either way, it's
Holy
fucking
water on her,
gross.
and
Yeah.
it's like, leave her tied up for a while. I'm
And
out.
she's spitting on him and screaming.
Yeah.
And it's just utterly horrifying. And then she's sort of catatonic after this has all gone down, and the priest is just like, oh, just let her hang out for a minute. It's fine.
Yeah.
And then the husband unties her and is like, are you going to come up to bed?
Yeah, and she's like, I'll be there in a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's interesting about the way this scene is played is that, you know, it's not like she's screaming, no, no, no. Not that she isn't necessarily thinking or feeling that, but it's almost to the hilt of like, well, is she possessed? Like, is there like a supernatural thing happening here?
Yeah.
I mean, I read it as definitely no. This
I
person's
read
just
it
being
as
victimized
just
and
pure
trying to like
rage.
yeah, and she's
'Cause
just
she's
in
not-
agony and like
Yeah.
yeah, she's, you know, being tortured and abused, but you know, it's the same way that people react in depictions of possession in popular culture.
It's not like the rape thing of be like, no, get off me. It's just like, yeah, it is
writhing and
just
screaming
ecstatic
and desperate.
anger.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's how I read it too. And it is very curious and it seems very purposeful.
Yes.
And the next scene after she goes up to the bedroom is the husband's in bed. She gets a large needle out of a
Yes.
drawer, like a very large, like a 12-inch needle at least out of a drawer.
Yeah. I don't know if that's for darning or what. I'm sure.
I don't know, but it's big and scary looking.
Mm-hmm.
And then what exactly happens there?
Well, there's a little bit of voiceover, I think, that is, you know, clearly non-diegetic. That's her being like, teach me, show me the way or something.
Right.
You know, which is, it's fairly easy to infer is directed at Delaney.
Yes.
And if you take that with the fact that she had the
Ash
on
on
her
her
hands, she's been, I don't
It's
know,
like
long
a
distance
matter
learning,
of communion.
learning witchcraft or, you know, whatever his supernatural abilities are from him somehow. And,
Presumably learned from his mother.
yes.
And presumably how, I'm going to extrapolate on that and say probably how his father learned how to talk to him across the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how she will probably end up, like, fucking with her husband.
My assumption as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And good lord, does that guy have it coming to him.
Oh, boy, howdy does he ever.
So that's interesting. So, like, even if that exorcism scene is sort of played, like, 10% ambiguously, it's very clear now that even if there was, you know, quote-unquote, the devil in her, it's not gone.
Yeah, but I think that my assumption is that she can make her own decision about that. My question is, like,
She's clearly chosen to embrace at least...
she's clearly had enough of her husband. That's how I'm reading it right
Me too.
now.
Like, it's not an embracing of Delaney as much as it is maybe this is a means to an end of getting me out of this awful situation.
Because it seems like, from what we know, like, a pattern of abuse with her husband has just boiled over to the point of being untenable for her. And that that's the only way I can read it, because I don't get why she would be like, I'm sick of this now if she had these powers to begin with.
No,
Maybe it was, like, acceptable, but he's just gone crazy because he can't deal with his either jealousy or whatever is going on.
Insecurity and everything.
Combination they're in with Delaney. But that's how we end the episode, is her just this very ominous, like, yeah, I have powers.
Yeah.
I learned a thing.
Yeah. I will say, this is not a prediction, but more of a hope is that her character just sort of makes it out of this whole situation entirely and doesn't end up with either of these, like, controlling men, you know?
Yeah, nothing good happens either way there.
Like, get out of there and literally be a free witch. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why I'm shipping, you know, Lorna and Delaney, but I just... I like those kids together, even though he's scary as fuck.
Yeah, he's not good. He does not have any business being in a relationship. I'll say that right now.
No, definitely not.
Like, I don't think he has any business having, like, a friend. He's, like, that damaged of a person that, like, no one deserves to be his friend.
You don't want to watch the, like, sequel set, like, 30 years later that's just him and Atticus hanging out in America.
I mean, I just want an Atticus standalone in general. It's just called Atticus with, like, 3 exclamation points.
Yeah, right, yeah. He, like, opens a bar in Boston.
Yeah, totally.
Or he just, like, starts, like, one of the first gangs in America.
Totally.
That would be great. Yeah, do we have any other bits of observation or speculation to share before we wrap things up this week?
Do you have any predictions? I sort of accidentally discovered one while we were talking through things.
With the, like, possibility of the Americans not all
That
being
it's
on
like-
the same page?
Yeah, that it sort of contrasts the British situation with the East India Company and the Crown. But who's to say that that'll come to pass? It sort of makes a certain amount of sense.
No, definitely. I mean, I think an obvious one, which is at this point basically a foregone conclusion, is that Delaney was on board the Influence.
Yeah, he was like maybe the only survivor, or one of the few survivors of that.
Is that what they
vessel when
say
it
in
went
the
down.
first episode, that he's the only survivor, right?
I want to say that's true, but it's been
They may have even mentioned the ship by
Weeks
name
ago.
then, and I forgot.
more than likely, I bet that's true. But point being, I'm certain that was the vessel he was on that went down, and he survived somehow.
Yeah, but apart from that very obvious conclusion, I don't know where it's going.
I don't either. I mean, he has to.
Okay, who's the rat?
Who's the rat?
Is it
I assume
Chombley, the chemist.
that is possible. I still think Atticus is possible. I'd be bummed because I love Atticus. And
Yeah.
I don't want to watch him get eviscerated.
I guess it could be Lorna, but I don't think Lorna actually knows all that much.
Well,
Right?
she
doesn't know where the farm is, which is the key piece of information. It could be Brace.
Brace is the one that had occurred to me too, because that would be the most like, oh shit.
And there is a scene where he's like, "How much did you tell Lorna?" And he's like, "I told her nothing."
He has the
And he's
most,
like, "Well, you know a lot."
and he also has the most insight into both his father
Yeah.
and Delaney Jr. So
Yeah. And he doesn't want any of this shit to be happening in the first place.
yeah. No, Brace was occurring to me earlier, and it would also be a really nice way to subvert sort of Alfred paternalistic vibes in a meaningful way that would make sense in the Taboo universe, the Taboo verse.
Yes. Yes. Earth Taboo.
Yeah, the stinkiest Earth in the multiverse.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
I don't think I have any other predictions though.
All right, yeah, me neither. I'm ready to put a cork in this bottle.
Let's do it.
All right, well, until next week, thanks for tabooing with us.
See y'all later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You give me the sweetest taboo. You're giving me the sweetest taboo. Too good for me.
This has been a podcast presented by
Hard to find media.
Subscribe to Hard to Find Media on youtube.com/Hard to Find Media Network. This shit is free. Share it. Blast it. Fuck it.